We need to call to order our own boards as part of this joint meeting. So I will start, if that's okay.
Please do.
So I would like to call to order the joint meeting with the school committee, the select board, and the finance committee. On behalf of the school committee, is there a motion? Or I'm just calling to order, right? I don't need a motion?
No, you don't need a motion, just calling
Okay.
to order.
Calling to order. So welcome, everybody. Really happy that we could all get together and kind of discuss where we're at as a town and support of one another. So Dr. Vada, can I turn it over to you?
Yeah, sure. So I think we're all kind of in a little angst right now. Budget numbers did come out. They're pretty stable for us. Nothing that was really dramatic new information from the governor's office that we haven't been talking about for a few months. And then there's the issue of how does town meeting go about with some potential weather issues? And I think Mike and Wade and others have been opining on how to deal with that. I'm going to guess the moderator as well. So I think, Mike, we're waiting until tomorrow or Saturday morning? Is there a call on that yet?
Trying, hold on.
While we do this, guys,
Mike,
I apologize.
you're still muted, but yeah, go ahead.
Could someone just promote Meg Arts to panelist, please?
I think she's
I think
a panelist.
Brad
And
might be
as
there
well?
too.
Oh, Mike is there, okay.
I just added Mike and Meg.
And then do you see
Thanks,
Brad
Jen.
Bramwell?
I see a Brad. I'm
Brad in the
gonna
participants, yeah.
That's probably him, Jen.
Brad. I'm gonna promote him as well.
If not,
we'll kick them back out. That's fine.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
So, Joe, in answer to your question, where you want to see if we can meet at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. Right now, it looks like the rain's going to end Saturday morning earlier. And so we'd like to see if we could have a meeting at 10 o'clock at the high school and see if we can get things set up.
All right. So then the second part of this really becomes the articles, which I don't know if there's a lot of, I know, Mike, I'll defer to you and Stephen, to you as the chair of the FinCom. I don't know if there's motions have been made and passed in terms of supplementals and so on and so forth. I guess there are some significant other articles that really don't pertain to my office, so I'll defer to you guys on that. But as we look, if I could just speak real quickly, and then the other discussion on FY21 articles, if they impact the schools, I don't know. But in terms of the supplementals right now, the governor's office release of this week, I actually went through it and spoke to Mike this morning. It's pretty much what we established in terms of the cut to the $72,000, which was the SOA, the Student Opportunity Act. We anticipated that cut coming forward. In fact, it did, except it came in at $62,000 instead of $72,000, which was interesting. There was some flexibility in the charter school payments. I don't know where Southeastern landed, so Mike, I'd have to defer to that in terms of, if they're going to be coming later for more funds. I don't think so, based on the way I read it. But again, I can't speak to them. And then lastly, going forward, based on the governor's proposal for the remainder of this year, I think there's a big question mark on what's going to happen with the federal government. And as far as I know, I have no faith that anything's coming from the feds right now. So I think that will mean that in terms of our budget is frozen, except and has been frozen for over 3 weeks. In terms of expenditures, expenditures have to come through Matt and my office, and right now those are health and safety issues. Only our biggest issue continues to be the backfilling of teachers because of FMLA, now related, or in the next few months going to be related to maternity leaves and paternal leaves. Paternal leaves, I think we're going to see an increase. And the reason for that is the doctors are signing off that COVID, it can be a situation for children, specifically those born. And so comments like, the child's lungs aren't fully mature yet, if you will, or aren't fully to the level they're supposed to be. Those are the types of things that we're starting to hear. So that's going to cause some stress on paternal leaves and maternity leaves. Maternity leaves, I think, will increase in terms of the time that people will be away. Doctors are signing off consistently that once the person is getting closer to the birth of the child, with COVID numbers spiking, we're starting to see, and again, spiking meaning spiking in general, not necessarily spiking in Norton. We're starting to see that those requests are going to be longer. So the way that it works is you have FMLA, which will go on at the same time as their sick bank, their individualized sick bank, but then they have the right with medical documentation to continue to use their sick bank. After the utilization of all of their sick bank, then they have the right to apply to the actual employee sick bank. So as you can see, this is just a constant potential for employees who could be out anytime from in September when we started all the way through literally June 30th. And so that's the biggest nightmare on the school side in terms of our day-to-day operating budget needs going forward. The supplemental will get us to backfill two of the areas. One was transportation, the other one was educational services contract. We're trying to zero out as much of our substitute situation by just literally backfilling. We're running, as you all know, we're running a school within a school model right now. That could be going all year. That could eventually be only remote. Remote does potentially save us money. Hybrid and remote at the same time do not. So just to put that out there in terms of the actual big question mark for the school department going forth. If the feds do come forward with something and it's done in the way that most of us would like to see it, which is to come back into the general fund and or direct, in our case, directly to us, past the 31st. Because remember, right now, all of the federal funding ends on the 31st. All the PPE, all of the $225 per student that we got through the state, all of that ends on the 31st. So the big market becomes what happens for payment from January to June. And then lastly, we will see an increase in special education. There's some significant social emotional, in my day, mental health. Today we call it social emotional needs. We are seeing these types of issues increase, and these are not $20,000 and $30,000 placements. These are six-figure placements, not including transportation. These are residential. These are day schools. We're going to see an increase in that. We're having some deep discussions already about trying to create our own, if you will, or trying to do the right thing within our district instead of just having students going out. But the social emotional well-being of students currently is a concern. So it's a staff issue for us, and then we have an issue in terms of student needs and supports. And added to that is whatever model we are in for the rest of this year and or for only a period of time is everything to do with direct service delivery around ELL, 504, special education. Those are three core areas where the delivery model as it changes has a potential financial negative impact. Right now, parents choose the model that they want per DESE. So I can call a parent and say, I'd like to give you 4 times a week because we can do a better delivery of the service. And the parent can say, well, no, that causes a situation for us in terms of how to deliver the service via a virtual situation like this, in terms of speech, OT, PT, nursing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the kind of big picture update. Our goal is, in my discussions with Steve a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, as the chair, is to, as we file our reports with the school committee on a monthly basis, we will send them to Steve to share with the rest of the committee. And then questions and answers can come via email or requests for more information, that type of stuff as we go. And then lastly, we are working to try to figure out issues around transportation that could potentially cost us money, but just realize that these service delivery contracts through the state are very fixed. And that's the biggest issue, as you know, from the spring. We're hoping, right now, we are utilizing our Bloom Transportation to support us with getting food out to students. The feds, and correct me, Matt, but the feds have come out with free and reduced basically for anyone who wants to have it through June 30th.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's going to be could be a very good positive for us, because the actual funding coming in could actually completely offset that cost, maybe even put a couple of dollars away for long-term planning within the kitchens in terms of physical capital needs. The problem that we're having is we just don't have a lot of people who want to apply for that. So we're trying to really push with family, hey, you don't have to bring lunch. You can get a lunch at no cost to you. Just show up. You know, the prior week, you got to go online, sign up for what you want, and we feed you, and you don't have to take out any funds. So we're hoping to make a big push over the next few weeks with that to see if we can climb those numbers up. That's it for me.
Thanks, Joe. I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions. I think that everybody is struggling during COVID, and I think we're seeing the struggles, of course, using our kind of school lens. I'm sure the struggles are real for everybody, but just wanted to really give you kind of an overview and an update of kind of the balancing act and some of the concerns and some of the, you know, the needs that need to be addressed. So I'm not sure if anybody else has comments.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
when can we expect to see some numbers? I got everything that Joe said, but when can we see some numbers on paper that we have $1 billion problem, we have a $500,000 problem, whatever the, you're muted, Joe, if you're trying to talk.
Thanks, Zach. Sorry about that. I'll defer to Matt on timelines. We did send a pretty specific report out. I don't know if everybody's gotten it yet for the end of the year and then beginning of the year, but I'll defer to Matt for a schedule so that you folks all have that information.
Yeah, so probably about a couple of weeks ago, we did send out, I think I sent it to Steve and Amy, the end of year financials and our current status, where we're at this point in time. So that packet, I can resend it if we didn't receive it. I'm happy to send it out again. And then each month we will continue to report along the same lines so that we kind of understand where we are with all of our expenditures.
And we did receive that. It's been forwarded to the committee. The one question I have for you is, can we set a deadline on when we will receive that end of the following month?
Can I answer that?
Now, or
Steve?
that's not available?
Yeah, so Steve, our goal is to take it to the second meeting of the school committee every month, which will bring up the prior month's information. So you'll get October's in the second week, the second meeting in November. If we don't have a second meeting, then we'll just send it to you. And that's just so that because as you know, with the business model, you're trying to update that at the same time that you're creating already the next month, because it's a constant flow. So we have to have a drop date, if you will.
Oh, makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else? Not seeing anything. Dr. Bayetta, I'm going to turn it over to you again to talk about the discussion on the train bid.
And I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Wells.
Thank you. So yeah, our evaluation team has completed looking through all the proposals. All the firms that submitted proposals were seen as qualified. The most qualified bid that we looked at was the one from Train Commercial Systems. All three evaluators agreed on that. The next steps in the process is we send a written confirmation to Train, letting them know that they've been selected. And then we will put together the audit contract, which is pretty standard. It was part of the bid packet. And we'll start moving pretty quickly into the audit of all the buildings. If anyone has any concerns about that, let us know. But we're ready to move forward.
Just from a high level perspective, how many bids do we actually receive?
We received 3. I think if I'm correct, we had at least 5 or 6 that were real bidders that were interested and requested the proposals, but they just didn't submit on this project. But we did receive 3.
And can you just give this is what, an energy audit on potential efficiencies that will go through the school buildings? Is that?
Yeah, so what the ESCO project is you're creating a partnership with a company that looks at your energy services and provides projects that will improve upon those energy services. And then as part of that, that creation of the projects, there's a savings that they guarantee that will be generated from the project, and then you use those future savings to fund the project. So it's really a way to do some capital upgrades on your HVAC systems, roofs, some electrical, and solar, without having to tax your capital projects. And it utilizes the actual savings that they generate. If you hit a year where it doesn't hit that savings, they guarantee the savings. So the firm then cuts you a check that closes the gap on those savings. So, and what you're really signing up for is you're creating a 20-year relationship with this company. It's a 20-year time frame that you're signed up with this company. So over the next 20 years, you will just continuously be looking at energy efficiency projects. They will recommend them. They will give you a full sort of a project management aspect of it, let you know what the savings is. You look at the project, determine if it's something that is feasible for the district and the municipality, and then you move forward with it.
Steve, just for clarification, the bid went out for the town and school buildings, not just the schools.
That is correct. We try to get every building onto the bid, so that even though some of those buildings may not have energy efficiency projects planned for them ever, or not in the near future, we wanted to make sure we had them in there so that if 10, 15 years down the road, we look at a building and say, yeah, let's do a project on this. We wanted to have it in that bid so we actually could do that project.
And do you have an executive summary of the cost benefit analysis they gave over the 20 years, what we can expect? I assume that's what the voting on this was when you said to move forward with a specific vendor.
Well, what you really do is they give you sort of a sampling of projects that they've done around. So for example, like Dighton Rehoboth has done $12 million worth of projects that generated $18 million worth of savings for the schools. So I can certainly share a few of those projects with you so you can kind of see that what we expect to, what they can actually do for you if you really move forward with all of the projects. But the savings is really going to depend on, like, when we look at these projects and we what are we going to move forward with? We can't guarantee what all of our projects are going to save, because we don't know what projects we're going to move forward with.
Yep. And is it unusual, now maybe I'm taking it too literal, where we're saying it's a train agreement, a specific company agreement? Is that unusual? Because they're going to be shopping their own products only. And do you know that all of those will fit our current needs or future needs, if you will?
Yes. So when you sign on with these firms, definitely that's one of the things that when you sign on with the company, you do end up purchasing their products. They give you a pretty good cut rate on it. And that's how they kind of help to generate those savings, because they know they have guaranteed work with you for at least 20 years. If you had signed on, if the company was Honeywell, Honeywell would be moving their products towards you as well. So where you're really saving on it is that you have that relationship with that company. So if something goes wrong with the product, over the next 5 or 10 years, they haven't gone away. They're still here. They're your strategic partner for the next 20 years.
In the projects that you guys reviewed, I know it's a fairly new concept, this kind of energy audit, if you will, for this type of project. But how would those relationships work? Did people exited after so many years, where if Train is frustrated, they can leave, and now you're kind of stuck with Train products potentially somewhere down the line and cost more to retrofit, if you will?
So the references that we spoke with, which were multiple different districts around the state of Massachusetts, even with the companies that we didn't go with, everyone has been really happy with the relationship that they've had with the company. Nobody has moved on that we spoke to, has moved away from that company within that time frame. The relationship's been great, and there's a lot of energy to want to make this work on both sides of the game. So they definitely work hard to make you happy, and for the most part, what I've been seeing it from the savings versus cost, it's pretty significant for the municipalities.
Steve, because I think it was the city of Quincy that had issues where this type of a project didn't work out, so.
Yeah, and the city of Quincy's, to Steve, and I happen to be the next door neighbor at the time as superintendent, the city of Quincy's number one issue was the way that they went after the bid process, because it ended up costing them, I believe, the actual cost to do the work, and the payout was about $1 million short, if I remember correctly. I don't want to misspeak. There's two areas that are problematic on the school side, and I would argue even on the town side, but I'll let Mike speak to it. Every project that I do within a building is going to require an architect and a project manager. Right away, that increases our cost. When you're going through a situation of, for example, let's say we're putting a new roof on a building, and I'm going through the MSBA process because we're getting some type of money back, you'll actually see that the cost through the MSBA process and the potential with train can almost be zeroed out, because the money that you're saving, the idea goes right back into that payment. So you're not taking it from capital. So you don't have to worry about coming forward and saying, well, I need $250,000 every year for the next X number of years because of HVAC systems or so on and so forth. The big issue for us on the school side, and I would argue on the town side, is having that relationship stops us from having to utilize low bid requirements for the hiring of technicians when something does go wrong. We constantly just go back to the company that you're using. You don't have to go out and bid yet again. One of our biggest issues here when I got here 7 years ago, and I think Wade's on the call, without using names of companies because I don't want to be negative, but what I was seeing was six-figure costs to fix HVAC systems. And I didn't even understand why we were spending that type of money. And so we bid out, and we were lucky enough to win with someone else. That constant turnover of who is your vendor is in my opinion, very problematic, because of who knows how to work with those systems. But the understanding part of this audit is that these people will now go through your public buildings in the town. There's a cost for that. If you in fact complete projects, you don't actually pay that cost for the audit. So you can then work towards projects. For example, we might say that we want to do a solar project for the high school because we want to do solar panels at the high school, or we want to do, I was going to say windows, but windows is not a good one because we just did them. Any of those projects that are outlined by the Board of Selectmen and the school committee become the projects that we actually move forward on, that take the money that's saved within the operational budget and move it towards the payment of the actual cost of the project. And to me, that's where this procurement process and the way that it's done, and having companies that are working with you for long periods of time on the very products that they put in your buildings makes sense. It's also full competitive wage. It doesn't walk around like, the idea that you're paying less. They're using all the competitive wages that you still have to use as a community with labor and so on and so forth. It doesn't walk around that. What it does, though, is it takes you out of just a low bid process.
Thanks, Jim.
Mike, can I ask Matt? I'm sorry, Matt. Can I ask Mike? So, Mike, what are you doing on the town side? I mean, is it all being done through Matt or for the town buildings? And if there are new buildings, do they just roll into bid as well, or so forth?
You're muted. You're muted.
On the new buildings, Matt, are we only committed to the buildings that we currently were part of the bid?
So what we do is we put the town hall and the senior center on there with their current square footage. And I did ask that question that, we're moving forward and we're going to have, potentially new buildings that we build. How does that play into this when we have a 20-year relationship with this company? And because we have them on there, when we transition if we transition to a new town hall and a new senior center, then they just get added on because we had them on that original bid. They just sort of get added So, looking 10 years down the road where some of the systems might start to fail on new buildings, they'll be able to come in and help us out with that because we did have them on the original bid, at least as far as the original buildings go.
And I have one other question. Does this, by being in this contract, does this take us out of, if the state decides or the government decides later on down the road, rebates or anything like that? Does it just go through train or does it?
Yeah, that's part of what they help us with. They'll help us shop through all those rebates. So they have a division that looks at all of this and finds all those little pieces of money that you can grab onto and utilize for your projects.
Thank you.
Mike, to you and to Steve as well, I was asking the questions. Matt, is it possible to provide the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board and the FinCom an electronic copy of what this audit looks like in terms of how it was scored, what they said they would potentially be doing? Do we have it electronically, I guess is the question.
Yeah, the actual, the scoring, you mean the evaluation scoring?
That and the actual proposal.
We can do this. Yeah, the scoring's real easy. I can get that off tomorrow morning. I have it already electronically. The proposal is a bound book, so I mean we can do it. We'll just have to tear it apart and force it through the machine.
Can we reach out to the company and ask them for an electronic copy? I'd be shocked if they don't have one.
Yeah, that's no problem because we're going to reach out to them anyway. So
if we can get that to the both committees, we'll release it to the both of you as soon as we can. If we can't get an answer from them, then we'll cut and paste and run it to our machines, and it'll just take a little longer to get it to you. I'll be surprised if they don't have it electronically.
Yeah, we may even have it somewhere in the packet too. I know they supplied a couple of flash drives, so I can look at those.
Okay.
And just to reconfirm, so both sides, the school side and the town side, view this and all in agreement. And then my other follow-up to that is, what would the process be for selecting the projects we move forward? Is it going to be a town team that reviews those proposals to move forward, or is it one group of people versus another? How does that work?
Well, there's a couple of different potentials that I would defer to Mike Units on. There's the potential that the Select Board and the school committee come together and prioritize whatever that project would be, and then there's the permanent building committee.
Yeah, normally with districts, they once the audit is complete, they give you a listing of all the projects they think are going to have high value for you, and then in a lot of districts or municipalities, then it's just sort of the town manager and the superintendent work together, bring it to the select board, and talk about those projects of what makes the most sense moving forward.
Any large scale items should run through the building committee. So if the same information that Matt's going to send us, we can share with the building committee so they have that, so they know what they're talking about.
So if you take, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but if you take this information, Mike Units, if you take this information from these type of utility audits, as I just call them, maybe that's the wrong phrase, and you take a look at the window envelope review that's being done, every single one of our public buildings in town will have the most up-to-date information for what I think the FinCom's been asking a lot about, which is some long-term fiscal planning. And to me, the only way to really do that is if you don't have the resource inside, you got to bring the resource from the outside. Unfortunately, you have to pay for it, which is always a cost. I would argue that there's a potential that cost could be absorbed by capital, as we've done with other things, and then make a decision between the boards, the building committee for the bigger projects, around which ones should be prioritized. And to me, that then also establishes long-term debt for the town if there's a potential for that, but more than likely, long-term savings that you can see within an operating budget that is paying off that cost.
And the building committee should be involved because I know that they have money that was appropriated to do an envelope study that they've been holding, waiting to see what happens with this. So they may not need that.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember the bid process, if you hire a company, whoever they are, and there's a cost to that, if you in fact begin your projects, there is actually no cost for the audit, if I remember that correctly.
Right. So the audit is, if you were to just do this audit and then walk away from the project, you're looking at about $33,000 you'd have to pay for the audit. However, if you now take those projects and start moving forward, you don't pay that $33,000. You just continue with the projects, knowing knowing that 20-year relationship is there, and working through the projects. They make money off of the project. They do. So yeah, the audit no longer is a check that you have to write at that point.
So Matt, there's no time frame. It's just as long as we start the projects within 20 years? Or is there a limit? Like do we have to do 20% of the recommended projects?
I think that, they're going to have, when we go through the audit, we'll determine how many projects we want to do. I think every municipality is different. I did ask that question. I said, what if we do, like a project this year, we decide on a project that we like and we move forward with it. And then say in FY22, it becomes a really difficult financial year for the town. Can we not do a project in that year? And they said, yeah, that's fine. You can not do the project, and it's not going to be any kind of a negative impact on you. So it's you're just setting up, and really what it is to try and save money for the district. Obviously the firm you're working with wants to make some money as well working with you. So it becomes that relationship of balancing those two together.
Mike, if we had to pay for this, could that money that was allocated for the envelope study be used for this, or would we have to go back to town meeting for approval?
If it's going to be used for something other than an envelope study, you would have to go back to town meeting to transfer it out.
And the audit wouldn't count as an envelope study?
Well, that's why I think we should sit down with the building committee with that information so they can see.
Great, thanks, guys.
Matt, just my last question. It's just 20 years seems like a long time. Is that the only option?
That's how the procurement is set up, the way the law runs. It's a 20-year relationship, which does seem like a long time, except that, it's harder when you're going out every couple of years and finding another low bidder. And then when they walk away at the end of it after the warranty period's over, and it's really difficult at that point. So although it does seem like a long time, it's probably going to go very fast.
Thank you. Appreciate the work on this.
Sure.
So I think that was all that we had sort of on our agenda for the joint meeting. I'm not sure if the select board or the finance committee had any other topics to discuss. Seeing none. So I just want to say it's such a pleasure to kind of get together and to work collaboratively to all be on the same page so that we know what each other is doing. We're sort of not on our own islands, kind of trying to survive by ourselves, really kind of working as a community and as a team. So I appreciate everybody's time and effort to come together and to make sure that if you have any questions about Norton Public Schools or about what we're working on, certainly between Dr. Baeta, Matt, Wade, there's always somebody who can answer those questions, or certainly us on the school committee. So thanks, everyone. Dr. Baeta, do I need to have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Oh, Madam Chair, if I...
Oh, sorry,
can.
Jack, sorry.
No, sorry, I was rushing back to my computer while you were asking for additional items. I love these. I think these are great. I'd like to schedule our next one now while we're here. I think it's really important to keep these going, and rather than scheduling them on the fly and trying to, I think if we look out until January and pick a day, it gives people, this becomes something to schedule around as opposed to try to squeeze in.
Sure.
So if that works for everybody, could we do maybe mid-January, a Thursday there?
It certainly does.
And I agree. I think that makes sense. We just have to see the commitments that we have, make sure we have quorums, that kind of thing. So it makes sense.
So what about, we propose Thursday, January 14th, 2021?
Is there a holiday around that, Jack?
MLK Day is the following week.
I don't foresee that being a problem with the school committee.
Yeah, we can move our, if we already, I don't have the calendar in front of me. If we have to move our meeting to that same night so that we can just do it instead of having an extra night, we can easily do that.
So that works for us.
Scheduled the 21st, Joe.
Say again?
We do have one scheduled the 21st.
Yeah, so we'll be in the height of budget season for us in terms of putting our budgets together and everything else. So I don't see that as moving it to the 14th. I don't see that as a problem.
Yep, that definitely works for us. So we can certainly mark that in our calendars, Jack. I think that's a great option. And I really appreciate, I think, working together and sort of keeping each other updated on what is sort of happening is a really great idea. So we will mark January 14th, 2021 as our next joint committee meeting, inclusive of us as the school committee, the select board, and the finance committee.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
School committee would be a motion to adjourn the joint meeting and return to your regular meeting.
so for the school committee, is there a motion to adjourn the current joint meeting to return to our in-progress school committee meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Thanks. All in favor? Dinesh?
Yes.
Sherry?
yes.
Dan? And Carolyn, I'm a yes. So thanks, everybody. We will see you on Saturday.
Yes, thank you so much.
Really appreciate you taking time to join us. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Take care all. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys. Bye-bye.